Welcome back. You're still watching Citizen TV. This is indeed Power Breakfast, and the hashtag to use this whole hour up until 9 is Power Breakfast. You can tweet us at Citizen TV Kenya. My Twitter handle is at Fred Ndimuli. You're on Twitter, Senator, at Senator Kewa Matangi.
At Kewa Matangi.
Kirwa official,
yeah.
Yes.
At Karanja Kabagi.
And at Karanja Kabagi.
At Kewa Matangi.
At Kewa Matangi.
Yes.
At Kewa Matangi. Yes. You can also text us on 22422. We continue with this discussion. We're generally looking at the headlines today, and one of those headlines is it's been given a very small space on page 4 of the Standard, but this is something that will really count because it makes part of the rules for political parties to follow. These are some of the regulations they need to adhere to as we head to the elections, which is in about 40 days or less.
Yeah, 39
days to the election. And it says bulk vernacular text messages have been banned. Now, political parties will not be allowed to send any of their bulk text messages in vernacular. It has to be either Swahili or English. And Bonakira, because we need to wrap up this discussion, you wanted just to say, well,
I just wanted to say this. Well, we may agree with him that economic disparities create the kind of situation that we have as a nation. But the most important thing is that our brothers and sisters in Tanzania, their economic conditions are not worse or better than ours. We may be comparatively the same. But you see, they laid a good foundation. The British came here and they stereotyped every community such that I look at myself as better than my neighbor. I look at myself as better than the other person. And therefore, at independence, what we should have done is to build a nation where there is better cohesion, better acceptability of people across tribe. That is something that is still lacking in our political vocabulary. Number 2, it is important for us to realize that we live by history. We learn from history. What happened in Rwanda is because of the FM stations. We know, you people in the media, even Royal Media Services, you have vernacular stations, but you are more regulated. You've taken through that particular process. You are more regulated, and part of this challenge of post-election violence in 2007 was precipitated by vernacular messages that were passed almost on the eve of elections until the flame was just there, and it just needed a spark to create what happened. So it's important that this is a panacea in the short term, but in the long term, let us build the nation.
It is definitely something that should have probably featured strongly in the manifestos that were launched earlier this week. Matters of cohesion, matters of nation building and stuff like that. But of course, none of that was given much prominence by either side of the political divide.
In Jubilee, we had our strong, propositions on cohesion, on national cohesion. It is the Jubilee.
Oh, we also have it. Have you read ours? The problem with the Matangi, everything is
but it's a matter of fact.
I wanted to discuss the manifestos later on, but now because it has just progressively moved into that, let's talk about this issue of cohesion and why it is not featuring strongly. Because yes, we do agree that's perhaps one of the biggest problems we face as a country. Yes, economic empowerment is one, but also tribalism is another. So issues of cohesion have not been given as much highlight in either of the two manifestos. And we could start from there. Yes, you say you...
By the way, Fred, in the Jubilee manifesto, national cohesion has been given a lot of emphasis. A lot of emphasis. I forgot my copy in the car, but I have it.
Beyond just mentioning that this, we intend to promote national cohesion?
Well, and including the milestones that we've made and where we would want to go in the next 5 years to ensure that there is more national cohesion.
But you see that because some of these statements are very idealistic and without much consequence. That you say this is where we want to go.
Well, yes.
We want to promote national cohesion. How?
Absolutely, Fred. The reason is precisely what we have been saying in that earlier discussion. Why most of the intentions end up being in print and paper and not in action is because of the mindset that Kenyans have continued to hold. That the foundations that were laid, and that point that Kiro Mheshimiwa has just mentioned, we may agree on all the other things, and we do disagree quite a lot with him on the issues of NASA and the beliefs of NASA. But at least on that one, we agree that we have to revert and reverse back and start building a nation. and stop promoting the culture that we found and the norms that we found of dividing ourselves and continuing now to entrench those divisions even more around ourselves. So the reason anyone can write anything they want to write about how we will be more cohesive, how we'll find our way there. But unless, because cohesion is really a matter of belief, it's a matter of norms, it's a matter of practice.
The intent, intent and plan and strategy of how to get there should be clearer.
Well, you know, we have already the National Cohesion Commission, the NCC. So ask yourself, for people who have sat and even legislated and come up with a commission like that and a whole write-up and regulations and rules, including laws and penalties, but you still find that in the presence of that commission and all the laws and penalties below, somebody will stand on that podium, face a multitude of 1,000 people and say, leo tumebaki na risasi moja na mpaka wakati tunataka Raila akuwe rais ni lazima watu chache wakufe, watu kadhaa wakufe. I mean,
that sounds like criminal.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
And he's now saying now he should be arrested.
Now,
and you should not be relaying the same message.
No, just let me make my point. The point I'm making is, you can write anything you want to write. You can create and make all the laws you want to create. But unless, one, you enforce the penalties that are subsequent to violation of those regulations, and two, you ensure that you start dealing with the root problem itself, because you can window dress it from the top, but as long as the foundation is still rotten, as long as Kirwa and Kabage still believes that the things that they say to their children in the house in the morning are the same thing, then we will still grow up the same community.
But yes, we understand the problem with tribalism, and we are committed to actually promoting national cohesion, but it ends there. Because are we saying that it's beyond the political class to actually come up with a proper solution to this issue? That probably it is beyond them, and you know it, and therefore you won't even touch it?
Well, let me say this. I happen to have the 2 copies of the manifesto in my car. I've read them, and they have referred to the same issue, and we have also referred, and specifically the heading of our manifesto, being strong, does not mean that we are being strong just economically. We are being strong by being together as a nation, because we strongly believe that we must be all-inclusive, and that has been amplified very well. To be all-inclusive is to ensure that the diversity of this country is embraced, the diversity of this country is appreciated, celebrated, and every community has a right to certain services regardless of whether they vote for us or not. We don't need to exclude people on the basis of how they voted. We don't need to exclude people on the basis of their challenges, whether they are physically challenged or for any other reason, because we strongly believe that we are one nation. And that is the focus that we're giving. The other issue is the NCIC is a national institution. It's not a Jubilee project. For heaven's sake, it's a constitutional entity that is enshrined in our constitution, but we need to improve on their performance by removing them from behaving like policemen, but having issues of inculcating issues of nationhood, instead of spending a lot of their time waiting to say, what did Kabage say, what did Kirwa say, what did Mheshimiwa Matangi say.
They should promote,
should promote, so that they become more promotive than just preventive.
Yes.
Yep.
You know, the reason why I was saying that what the Communication Authority is saying is inconsistent with the Constitution is the Constitution itself is very clear that we shall promote culture and even languages of the people of Kenya. This is in the Constitution.
Yes.
You get what I mean? Now, when you are promoting culture, how do you promote culture without language? It cannot make sense to me. So, in my opinion, I think a way of dealing with the issues of incitement and excitement, first and foremost, rests with the law enforcement. Law enforcement. And that is most important, because if there is one thing that is common to all of us, it is the law. And in my opinion, Mheshimiwa Matangi was referring to it, that we can have all the laws, but if we don't have mechanism of enforcement, so that there are some people who feel, me, I can get away with it,
But don't you think, as Bwanakirwa said, that is more of reacting to the problem instead of being proactive in approach?
Let me be honest with you. You see, you cannot come up with the master law of the nation, recognize the cultural differences and the language of the people. That is what is supposed to be promoted. And then all of a sudden, you somewhere along the line you say, oh no, you cannot do this, you cannot do that. And that's why I said, within the security system of our country, they have the mechanism of knowing which message is inciting, which message that should not be there, and they should be able to arrest it and get people straight away punished for it. That is what you need to do. Now, if you are saying that temporarily, at certain point in time, in the life of our country, we can suspend the constitutional right of our people, I think you are talking about nonsense. It doesn't make sense. Secondly, I also want to say something. South Africa, as a country, has promoted national languages, what they call national language. There are about 11 languages that every area you are supposed to have them. In my opinion, if you want to change this country, my view is that every 47 county, they should have schools. If it's Kiambu, they should have a school that is teaching languages that are not necessarily spoken in that particular area. Every place they should do that. If it's in Kisumu, there is a school.
This kind of suggestion that Bwanakabagi is giving, don't you think that any party that is looking to or trying to suggest that you are looking to address the issues of national cohesion, that kind of suggestion is what should feature in a party manifesto, instead of just saying an ambiguous message of intent, but yes, we want to promote national cohesion?
My position, because you see, we cannot get away with the issue of languages. That's out of question. And anybody trying to advance that argument, it does not make sense. For me, what I would want to see, for example, in Kisumu, if I go to Kisumu, I'm living in Kisumu, and I don't speak that language, there is a school I can go to. I go to Western Kenya, the same thing. I go to Nandi, the same thing. And that to me, in the long run, not in the short term, in the 20, 30, 50 years down the road, you are going to have a nation whereby Mheshimiwa Kirwa, cannot speak his language by way of suggesting things that are anti-Luo.
Because you will understand.
Because people are understanding. And let me tell you, when you do that, it makes a lot of difference. And that
do you think, looking at the manifestos, that anyone has tried to tackle this issue?
I've looked at the manifestos of both, particularly with this respect of the issue of cohesion. It is not addressing, they are not addressing the fundamental challenge that we have as a country.
Let me just make a point there. You know, because you know, I have with me the online copy here. I had the hard copy I would have wanted to look at. You know, and if you look at what Jubilee says on the issue of building a more cohesive nation, we have outlined those issues very clearly. Actually, you see, we have said we have increased the number of members registered under the National Social Security Fund. We have said we have expanded the social safety net. We have talked about expanding of bursary targeting. Those are our achievements in that. And we have talked about expanding the bursary fund targeting of an orphan, expanded democratic space, and so on. And you see, listen to what I'm saying first, because there are quite a number of points. And we have also summarized what our new commitments here is. We have said we are going to ensure that there's balanced development across all the counties. That's what we are saying is our commitment towards dealing with that. We have said that we will enhance capacity of education in institutions to promote mature nationhood. We have said we will review and reform the mandate of the national cohesion. We have also said that we will register all births and issue IDs to eligible bona fide Kenyans, use ICT to enable and so on. But lastly, let me first make my point. Lastly, on that point, we have said that we are also going to promote Kiswahili as the main national language. Now see, let me make my point now. Those are our commitments. I was reading the achievements that we've already made as a roadmap, and that's what I'm saying. That really, when we are dealing with the issue of building a more cohesive nation, it is an entire spectrum of all those issues. Part of it, think you would have done a better job? Part of it is ensuring, yes, as using the Karanja Kabage approach, that we have economically empowered and distributed evenly the opportunities around the country. But in furtherance to that we have also dealt with the other side issues that have helped to catalyze, to vegetate the growth of
the commitment is clear.
The mentality.
The commitment is clear, Senator. The issue is, when you come to specifics, like when you say education and you even talk about specifics, free secondary education,
yes,
for all children, some even going as far as saying we'll even provide school uniforms for free.
Yeah.
But when it comes to this issue of cohesion,
yes,
you just leave it at generalized comments and ambiguous statements.
There is nothing generalized, even in the achievements. You see, I mean, we're very specific here.
No, Senator, I'll come back to you. Your manifesto suffers the same affliction. But you also have based this issue of cohesion on generalized statements. We want more cohesive nation. We want to promote nationhood. But when it comes to specifics about how you will address that,
yes,
they're not there. When it comes to economic issues, education, health, infrastructure, yes, you get very specific. A road, this number of lanes, from here to the other side, SGR ending here, SGR should end this other side. But when it comes to national cohesion, it ends at generalized comments of intent.
Well, first of all, a manifesto is supposed to be a framework through which will fit in the details in a government document that will fashion out immediately we win the election. Number two, we are very clear on issues of inclusivity. Where the rain started beating us is when we decided that we are not going to be inclusive. We are going to develop certain areas at the expense of other areas. We are saying we are going to be inclusive not only in terms of gender, but also in terms of community settlement, and also areas of disparities. We are going to address them. And finally, we've said we want to make this country the same by 45% of all ordinary revenue going to the counties.
But
we are very clear.
Don't you think that on this particular issue of cohesion, you would have done a better job in breaking it down and actually saying we are going to do this? Like probably one of the ideas, I'm not saying necessarily the kind of idea is given. I'm sure there could be others that probably give an idea. Because when you come to other issues like infrastructure, they actually break it down and even give numbers and statistics.
No, but also as we've broken it down on how we are going to be inclusive, in terms of setting out about issues of community to ensure that a community of interest is going to be addressed across the board.
I think being honest,
let me just
get out the copy here. I will be able to show you the page.
Before we even finish, first of all, I want to ask this very fundamental question, and hopefully Mheshimiwa Kilwa will be able to answer me. How is it that you are talking about national cohesion when your own leader goes to Kajiado and makes a statement to the effect that don't sell your land to people from other areas? Just a minute. How do you really...
I want to answer you.
Because
yes,
our constitution is very clear, Article 40, on what is called protection of rights to property. That's very, very clear. What does it say? It says every Kenyan has a right to do two things: to live in any part of this country, and two, to buy property in any part of this country. Now, when you so-called leader, goes and makes a public pronouncement, how does it promote the national cohesion?
But I would want to at least restrain this conversation to the issues of manifestos, where you've actually documented some of these things.
Just a minute.
On the campaign trail, there's a lot of things that are
Fred, let me first of all, you go on the in the public platform, you violate the constitution in the first place, because you see, the moment you start saying that don't sell your property to people,
I'll give you my opportunity to respond to that, but I want to come back to that.
That is precisely what I was addressing. I was talking about the problem of the attitude of the people.
The thing is this: anybody who is so-called a leader, in the first place, they should be very careful in violating the national constitution. And I'm making a specific statement. Article 40 on protection of right to property is very clear. It says every citizen of this country has a right to do two things: to live in any part of this country, and two, to buy property in this particular country.
Okay.
Now you have a leader.
Okay. Point made. Can you respond
No,
to
let
that?
me finish that. I want to finish.
Yes.
And then you come and pretend that you are having a manifesto
But
that is talking about national cohesion. What are you talking about?
Okay.
Well, I do not understand what they are talking about, because
Which people are you not understanding?
what you are saying, I do not understand.
It is not you who said it about
No,
your own leader.
No, please, you are getting emotional about
nothing
nothing.
about manifestos.
You are getting emotional about
not
nothing.
down to an individual.
But the issue is simple, and it is captured in the media. He never referred to any community. He was telling the people of Kajiado, and he repeated yesterday in Narok, that the fact that somebody is poor, and even in many other places, people sell land because they have challenges beyond their capacity, because the land is not producing enough, so they liquidate the capital to take a child to school. But if this parent had means of producing enough to take the child to school without necessarily selling the piece of land, he will not sell. And he said, kama ufukara ndio inafanya use shamba lako, tutahakikisha kwamba tunatoa ufukara ndio usio unauza shamba lako.
Okay. I do not want to belabor that that particular
But you
discussion.
see, they are getting emotional.
Senator,
We are
allow
very
me,
clear.
allow me to go back to the
protect-
issue of manifestos, because my belief is the manifesto is beyond an individual. You can go out and make any statement somewhere, but this is about the party.
But it's also
and if
good
at
to
all
clear
there's an
some of this,
opportunity
because
to
they have been
form
harping on
governments.
it.
Yes.
They have been harping on it, and it is something that is very clear. You can replay the clip.
Fred, I want to go to the manifesto,
Yes.
just like you said. But as I go to the manifesto, you know, now this is national TV. This is a national issue. It's out there in the public domain.
Yes.
So we can't run away from it. And it is important to.
I wish Fred you could
it is
play the clip,
important
because you
to-
see they are not doing their
Fred,
thing.
That is not the headline we are looking
Yeah,
at
but
today.
you know, you are allowing them to
Kiro,
do a
you
spin.
had the opportunity to speak. I'm
Make it
speaking.
brief.
Yeah.
I was just making a very, very
But you
brief
know,
by saying,
this is
because
just a spin
the
doctor.
matter is already in the public domain. Let's not run away from it. Let's put it to rest where it belongs. That it is wrong. It is callous. It is not acceptable for any leader anywhere to go to a community and say at this time that wale warudi kwao ama wakae kwao na wasiende
Well,
kwingine.
that
Now-
bit I
now,
never saw it.
so when we make
that
this
discussion,
the issue of
that discussion has to end there.
Well,
So
well,
unfortunately, I
it-
will not.
it-
No, we will not
it is-
continue that particular
it is-
discussion.
it is what
Let's
was
go back
said,
to the issues of
but-
manifestos.
but that's what I
Gentlemen, let's go back to the issues of
Fine.
manifestos.
I was making my point because
Now,
you said
You want to
you
say
said that
statements that we cannot clarify because we do not have the particular.
you said, but I pray, tell our director after this or after we finish this issue on the manifesto, please tell him to look for that clip and play it.
Okay.
Now,
But,
the point I was
before we
making
have
on
it,
before the point I was making on the manifesto,
Yes.
you said that we do not have specifics.
Yes.
I wanted to be very clear that in the Jubilee manifesto we have crystal clear specifics.
On
we
national
even have
cohesion.
yes, we have numbers. We are talking about that we have increased the number of registered members of NSSF from 1.2 million in 2013 to 2.3 million. We have numbers.
That is
now,
about social
just
security
a minute.
of,
We are
public.
talking of having expanded the safety net of more than 227,389 orphans from up to 700,000 now.
Surely,
you know,
Senator.
okay,
Those
it's
are
a
issues
small
of
copy. I'm not able to
social
read it very
security.
quickly, but
Yes.
what I'm saying is, so if you're talking about do we have specifics, do we have numbers? We have numbers. We have even we're talking about progressively moving 30%
Senator, I
of
think
the country
let's
onward.
agree.
So
When it comes to the party manifestos,
so-
this is one similarity. That
Yeah.
on the issue of national cohesion, neither the
no,
NAFTA
but
document
Fred,
nor the one by
Fred, you're not
Jubilee
listening to us
actually,
because the specifics
addresses that issue.
No.
No,
We
no,
have
no.
specifics.
Senator.
In the Jubilee manifesto, I don't know what specifics they're talking about.
Let's talk
But we have
about the
numbers.
issues that on national cohesion we do agree. You failed, both failed. Probably the idea.
No, we
but
failed.
both
In
documents
Jubilee we
failed.
didn't fail. We
No,
got it.
for us, we are very clear and all-inclusive.
The cartoon on the Daily Nation, and this is on page 14 of the Daily Nation, seems to suggest what you've particularly based most of your promises on, and the people who are happiest with the kind of promises made by both Jubilee and NASA. Yes? And who are these?
What does the cartoon
The
say?
people who give loans. Yes, these are the financiers of these projects that you plan to implement. Yes, your manifestos are very, very impressive. Who is saying that? The people who are actually financing those manifestos. National cohesion, you've not put a budget to it. You've not even gone into specifics. Therefore, that does not even impress the people who can finance any project.
You never put a budget on the manifesto.
on that issue, I think Fred, you just want to hammer us for nothing. I mean, especially as in Jubilee, that we have no specific.
No, I'm saying both documents.
Because we have
documents. But documents. But on issues of economy, issues of infrastructure, and probably that's where the financiers are happy, because they know, they see the opportunity to actually come and finance some of these promises you've made, especially on infrastructure. And this is on the 4th page of the Daily Nation. I'm just referring to what is on the headlines. Infrastructure, the extension of the SGR from Naivasha to Kisumu will cost money. Financiers are happy. Build 4-lane Mombasa Malaba Road and the Likoni Bridge will definitely cost money. Financiers are happy, because these are not projects that we are able to fund ourselves. But on issues of national cohesion, let's agree. Both documents. That is where the similarity comes in. But do you agree? Do you agree with this cartoon on page 14 of the Daily Nation that yes, both manifestos, the promises made by both Jubilee and NASA are very impressive to the people who are going to finance these projects?
Now,
Wanakaranja Kabage, let's start with you.
Well, I think that let's face it. Anybody telling you that you are going to develop this country through rhetoric, they are just imagining about development. Development as we know it is capital intensive.
Yes.
Is technology intensive. If you don't have it, what is the route you're going to use in order to do that? And I'll cite other examples. America, when it wanted to change its own country, they came up with what they call the interstate highways, that you can move from east to the coast, to the west. You can move from the north to the south without stopping.
Yes.
You get what I mean? And that is what changed the landscape of America. Two, when you look at Europe, they have motorways. What changed Europe is because they invested very heavily in transportation and infrastructural development. In this country, if any of the leaders from the divide comes with a story that oh, we are going to finance a 4-lane highway from Busia to Maraba to Mombasa through imaginary ways, forget it. Kenya as a country today does not have the financial wherewithal to be able to finance that sort of thing. The SGR, you're going to extend it from Naivasha all the way to Kisumu through some imaginary ways without borrowing. They're out of there.
So the only way to go is borrowing. Don't you think that this is just a shopping list?
What we need, what we need is to realize that if we want to develop this country, development is not political. It has nothing to do with you belonging to this party or that party. We must realize that we have to borrow. What we need to do is to ensure that whatever it is we borrow, we are using it specifically for that purpose, because it's a national asset. So this and it is generational. The loans we are going to borrow today will be paid even 50 years down the road.
Yes. So this is another similarity in the manifestos. Yes, they both want to embark on, if they get the opportunity to embark on mega infrastructure projects, that will definitely cost a lot of money, but the only way to go about it is borrowing.
Yeah, borrowing is not a crime, and even at individual level we borrow in order to improve our infrastructure, both in the farm or in business. Yes. And borrowing is not a problem. What we are worried, and this is the problem, is the cost of the projects. Just like the SGR, they have created a spin that it is their project, is their signature project. It is a national project that was planned, and all the things done during the Kibaki Raila government, the so-called Nusu Mkate. Number two, we are worried about the cost. We are not worried about the fact that the project is there. And I cannot tell you tomorrow the Mombasa-Malaba highway dual, we are going to do it from the taxes that we're getting from our people. We have to borrow, but we have to borrow responsibly. We don't have to say we're going to do the whole thing in 1 year. It is not even feasible. We have to face it out.
So the main difference between the NASA manifesto and Jubilee manifesto in as far as infrastructure developments is only how you borrow?
How you borrow and how you spend. Because it is clear that this Jubilee government is synonymous with corruption. If there is anything that you are to say about Jubilee is corruption, why? 35% of the total budgetary provisions goes to waste. And this, you can attest to it.
Okay. Because we're now looking at some of the similarities and differences. Because it appears, and the nation has done a very good analysis of some of the similarities, that both documents seem to be addressing the same issues. Same problem. There's no none of the documents is markedly different from the other. That none introduces something totally new. The only thing that is very new is probably the hybrid system of government, and we'll be looking at that in a short while. But when it comes to infrastructure, do you agree that most of these things, and even on page 2 of the Daily Nation, they've looked at the pillars, Jubilee, 3 pillars but addressing the same issues, 7 pillars of the NASA manifesto addressing the same issues, which the nation says it had already outlined the same issues a few months back under the nation agenda. So definitely both sides of the political divide are addressing the same issues. None of the documents is markedly different. Do you agree?
I'll tell you what is markedly very different from between the two documents, and especially the Jubilee manifesto from the NASA manifesto. Our difference is that the Jubilee manifesto is an upgrade of a vision that was already launched in 2013 and already under implementation, that you can see, that you can relate to, that you can touch and use. Because if you look at what we have said in all the pillars that we have, in all the in the 10-point plan that we have laid out in our manifesto, it is really it is a reloading, it is an upgrade of what we are already doing. Because come to infrastructure, how many, when you're talking about expanding the SGR, we've already finished the first phase of it. Jubilee has already done the first phase of it. When talking about the infrastructural development that we'll have in the other sectors of the economy, for example, in roads, we've already done. We've said we have 2,000 kilometers of road complete.
The difference
and we have another 7,000 already under construction. What we are saying is that ours is a manifesto that is already in practice and in use. And what we are saying is now we are reloading it for our vision. But the question up to 2022.
Do you think that the Jubilee manifesto addresses anything that has not been addressed in the NASA manifesto?
Yes, that's precisely what I'm saying. If you look at the heading of the NASA manifesto, at the top there, they have called it a dream. They have called it a dream, and that is what it is in most of the cases. But let me finish my point. Let's remember, and you've seen they're talking about building a 4-lane highway from Mombasa to Malaba. When Kibaki left office, he left us with a document called Vision 2030. That is part of what was agreed upon, that to be able to move this country forward, especially economically, that we have to implement that document. That is what also Jubilee has been doing, ensuring that there's continuity in a continued plan that has been laid down. This idea of building a highway is really a borrow they're doing from Vision 2030. Vision 2030 clearly
Vision 2030 is a product of national
consensus. Are you disagreeing on the fact that you're borrowing from the same idea?
Yeah. You see,
that's the similarity.
Yes.
In any government, any responsible government, and that is the part that they're trying to run away from when they come up with the manifesto.
My question was,
any responsible government realizes that there can only be continuity of policy from one government to another.
Time for a break. But the clarity of the question is, do you think that any of these documents is markedly different from the other? Which one is addressing something that the other does not? That when we return.
I was going to the issue of